Hello, welcome to Hitchhiking Stars channel. So this is the third presentation and third presentation on survival. So the astrology of survival. Let's have a look at the little presentation I put together this time. It is a lot shorter than the previous two, so this video is going to be a lot faster, a lot shorter. Just an interesting case, really. So a different case as well, not the kind of survival that we saw with the previous, or that you can check if you want on the previous two videos of, like, you know, being in nature, a plane crash or something. This is more of a different kind of survival, which I thought was interesting, caught my attention. It is a shorter presentation, as I mentioned, and this is the Anatoli Bugorski incident. So that's a picture of him there. You might have heard of his story. It was quite difficult to research and to find substantial material on it. Nevertheless, I thought it was worth presenting it. So the story, so Anatoly Petrovich Bugorski was a Soviet particle physicist. He's basically a survivor of a radiation accident in 1978, where a high energy proton beam from a particle accelerator passed through his brain. So the picture that you're seeing, and also as a disclaimer there, these pictures are like widely shared on in the internet. So if you type in his name, you're gonna find it. But it was really hard to find where the real source is from. So I don't know who took these pictures, and I couldn't I couldn't attribute authorship properly. But anyways, this is the picture that you're seeing there on the left, of him 36 years old when that happened, and the path that the beam did through his skull, basically. Just here as well, down here you can also see. So he went from the back of his head and came out from his left nostril almost. And apparently he said he didn't feel any pain. So he was working in this particle accelerator thing, and there was no sign, there was nothing telling him that there's still a particle there, there's still a proton going on, inside the room. So he went inside and got, hit by it. And apparently he was just very collected. He just went back home. He knew it was serious, I suppose, but he just went to his place. He didn't want to, I shouldn't touch my computer because then it makes a lot of noise. Anyways, he just didn't want to worry anybody, and he decided to go home and chill, until on the day after he woke up with the symptoms from radiation. His hair around, where the beam sort of hit him, had fallen off. His face was completely puffed up, and the skin started peeling off as well. So then he went to the doctors, or something like that, and then they left him in this hospital for radiation in the Soviet Union, to observe what was going to happen, because everybody thought he was going to die, and he didn't. So this is the strange and curious case of Bugorski. So Bugorski said he said there was I couldn't find any interview with him. I don't speak Russian as well, I suppose, so I couldn't really search for anything in Russian. So he said there was no pain, but he saw a light that was brighter than 1,000 suns. So also some of the things I saw was that the radiation dose was 300 times more strong, 300 times stronger than the lethal dose of radiation. So the dose that he received with that proton beam was 300 times higher than, a lethal dose. So that's quite impressive, isn't it? It's just such a strange story. So here we go. We've got the birth chart. There's no birth time. As I said, it's a bit of an obscure story. It wasn't easy to find a lot of information on it, or a lot of, like, I don't know, trustworthy sources as well. But so no astro.com, there wasn't any chart there. So I didn't find the birth time. I found the birth date on Wikipedia. So 25th of June, 1942. So yeah, I mean, we can't consider any of the houses, and we can't consider any, well, not any, but we can't consider any of the angles or the houses or the moon as well. I mean, we don't know like how early in Scorpio or how far in Scorpio the moon is. So this is a chart for midday for Moscow. There are some scientific reasons, explanations, theories for why he did not die, which really I'm not going to go into because I can't pretend that I know or that I understand these theories very much. But there is a mini doc I watched, which is quite interesting. So if you want to explore that further, there is a bibliography, last slide, so you can have a look and you can, you can make your own conclusions. So even though there were some scientific reasons and theories there about why he didn't die, there was also an attribution of luck. So he was apparently lucky, because even though the beam didn't give the full amount of, radiation power, whatever, because it didn't hit the end point or something like that, it was still lucky to where it actually went through, that it didn't come out his eyes, or I don't know, something a bit more ghastly. It kind of didn't damage massively his brain or anything like super important. So there was still luck attributed to it, which is there such a thing as luck? I don't know. What do you think? I'm not sure. All I know is that I don't know. So basically, as a consequence, though, from this accident, he lost his hearing in the left ear. He started having convulsions as well throughout his life, almost like epilepsy and that kind of stuff. Not that he got epilepsy, but he started having those kind of convulsions. He got extremely fatigued after doing intellectual work, a lot of intellectual work. Nevertheless, he did finish his PhD after this accident, apparently. And half of his face was paralyzed as well. So half that the beam was, the beam hit, got paralyzed and stopped in time, basically, some people say. I don't know. I haven't seen pictures of him now. There are only a few, of these pictures available. So hard to say. But apparently his face just got stuck in time. So he's got half of the face of a 36-year-old and the other half growed normally, as a normal face would. Anyways, this is the chart there. Now, the first thing that catches my attention with this chart, when we're thinking, oh, luck was attributed. I mean, he's got a partile, pretty much, conjunction between the sun and Jupiter, isn't it? I mean, that, Jupiter is the great benevolent, of the planets, not to say, I can't remember who that was, but there was a psychopath or something that was really hard to get caught. And I can't remember which one it was, but I remember Frank Clifford talking about him at the LSA, and the fact that he had like Jupiter rising or something. He had a very prominent Jupiter. It was really hard to convict him. Like, even though he committed a lot of crimes, he kept like, it was really difficult to prove that he was guilty. Or even like there was so many, strikes of luck that he just, kept going. So that Sun Jupiter might be connected with, the luck and the beam not really striking anywhere that, would permanently, and I mean, he has been permanently damaged in ways, but it could be way worse. I mean, if you think about it. But yeah, I mean, he went to that hospital and doctors were observing him, and they were all thinking, okay, he's gonna die anytime now, and just he didn't, and he's still alive, pretty much. So for me, that Sun Jupiter is definitely something that caught my attention. Again, interestingly, for some reason, we got that Cancerian, Cancerian vibes, Capricorn Cancer vibes. For some reason, that's being a repeated pattern on the charts I've been looking into, and it might well have something to do with the fact that my progressed ascendant is moving into Capricorn, so I'm just attracting a lot of Capricorn Cancer types. There is an exact trine between Venus and Neptune as well. Venus very close to Algol as well. I always think is very interesting. It always catches my eye when someone's got Venus conjoined Algol, because it does bring that signature, that Plutonic signature to Venus in Taurus. So we think about Venus in Taurus and instability, but there is something like slaying the dragons when we have that kind of aspect, you know, Venus and Algol like that. Nevertheless, it's not Venus Neptune exact, you know, trine. Unfortunately, I don't know which houses they're ruling, which is a real shame. That Neptune is rising there, but as I said, no birth time, so don't trust that. Moon is in Scorpio. We don't know how far that moon is in Scorpio, if that moon is opposite the Venus. If that moon is a square, that potential, you know, Pluto there as well. I'm not sure. But that's definitely a theme, isn't it? I mean, I would say the Jupiterian Cancerian theme is strong because of that Jupiter exalted in Cancer and very, very much in a partile conjunction. But also the Scorpio theme, Plutonic theme, is very powerful because we've got that moon in Scorpio, Venus and conjoined Algol, and we've got Mars Pluto conjunction. And it's a quite tight conjunction. It's a 2 degrees orb, less than 2 degrees orb. So it is a survivor, isn't it? And interestingly, Pluto is connected with the discovery of, you know, radioactive, you know, stuff, isn't it? In the 30s. There is something about that because, you know, Uranus was discovered around electricity and stuff like that. And Pluto was discovered, you know, as a planet and emerged as, you know, a symbol as well, in a way, in the astrological world. Also connected to, you know, yeah, like with this, all of these radioactive, deep, powerful, you know, stuff that's buried. I mean, that's very Plutonic, isn't it? And that Pluto Mars, I mean, Julian didn't have a Pluto Mars, and neither did Aaron as well. I don't think he had a Pluto Mars either. I can't remember. He was a Scorpio and he had a Mars in Cancer, but that's a Mars conjunction Pluto. I find Mars conjunction Pluto reflects the survivor very powerfully, very powerfully. So interesting, you know, Pluto with, you know, that kind of, this kind of survivor as well, you know, plutonium and radium and that kind of stuff, I think is very Plutonic. It's invisible, it's buried, it's got the, you know, the atomic bomb, you know, it's got a power to destroy massively. I really feel that's a very Plutonic thing. So he does have that signature. And again, would that be reflecting everyone? You know, a lot of people were born around that time, have that signature and didn't survive the radioactive, you know, thing. So not necessarily, but we're looking at that, knowing the context. That's the whole point. We know the context, we've got the context attributed. So definitely strong Plutonic energy there, a strong Cancerian Jupiterian, a strong Gemini energy too. You know, we've got Mercury in Gemini, Mercury in its own sign. We've got Saturn Uranus conjunction in Gemini, which is a generational thing, but interesting, isn't it? We're like going through a Saturn square. Uranus, part of the cycle of Saturn Uranus, and that's a conjunction. That's the beginning of one of those cycles, you know, Saturn Uranus in Gemini, which is about thoughts, thinking. And is a square? No, it's not square, it's a sextile, that Pluto. Anyways, I don't know. The Mercury in Gemini, definitely with, you know, all of the intellectual stuff, you know, that he did, but there's also that Chiron near that Mars as well. I mean, and apparently he had it pretty hard because the Soviet, for some reason, in this documentary I watched on YouTube, you're saying that it was really hard for him to get treatment from the government, and it was very, very expensive as well, and he wasn't considered eligible because he wasn't on Chernobyl. And it was just for people that had a Chernobyl, which happened a few years later. So it was a real struggle for him. you know, to continue getting his treatment. Nevertheless, he's still alive. And then again, it's like Mars Pluto at best, isn't it? It's a real sense of surviving and not giving up as well, like being really yeah, being really like, it's the Scorpio as well, isn't it? Yeah, resilient. That's the word I'm looking for, being very resilient. But then again, I just keep thinking about the luck with that Sun Jupiter. So let's have a look at the chart of the radiation accident day as well. So I got this date also from all of these articles, and Wikipedia as well had the date on it. So it happened on the 13th of July, 1978. Again, we don't know the time. I did put this city there, Serpuchov. I don't know how to say. I'm probably saying it wrong, because I found it as well in the sources, you know, that I was reading, where the place that he was working was. So what we have is the transits outside and the planets inside. Now, mind you, I don't do a lot of prep for these videos in terms of the charts and stuff. I quite like to roll with it and to see what, you know, comes up. Obviously, one of the things that catches my eye again is the Sun Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. So the same, very similar configuration is happening in the sky to his natal configuration. So that's kind of interesting. That's intriguing. That's intriguing. I'm not gonna say this is the significator of that necessarily, but that's intriguing. He's heading towards the Chiron square Chiron. Around that time, Chiron was a square his Mars. You know, Mercury in Leo, around those planets in Leo as well, but there was a Chiron square Mars, isn't it? But that would be going on, that would have been, you know, around for earlier as well, because Chiron moves slower. But you know, Chiron square that Mars, we don't know the houses, don't forget that. Don't look at Chiron in the 8th house and Mars in the 11th. It's not, because we don't have the birth time. We do have a Neptune opposite his Mercury, which, you know, could also be interesting. I mean, Neptune is, I remember a lecture by John Green. We were talking, well, he was talking about psychopaths and how you can't have a signature for a psychopath. And it was one of the first times that I actually thought about this. You know, there's no signature for these kind of things, but you knowing about that, you can look into the chart and think about the style of killing, the style of, you know, what kind of a weapon they would choose, what kind of victims they would have, and that kind of stuff. Now, Neptune stood for a killer. I remember him saying, so a killer that would be very Neptunian would choose poison and would kill people very silently, very slowly. So that Neptune opposite Mercury, you know, the poison, the invisible poison somehow, you know, and that being was traveling with the speed of light, though. It wasn't that slow. It was actually quite fast, but you know, he was alive and he kept alive throughout his life. You know, still dealing with the aftermath of that event. Uranus was also square his Chiron, so there was a Uranus Chiron opposition in the sky. Uranus is square his Mars, squares his Chiron. I mean, that seems to be relevant, isn't it? And Uranus is retrograde here, is square the Chiron. It seems like in his case there's a bit of a chironic theme going on when he, you know, he has the accident and activating his natal Chiron, basically. It's like Chiron transits with his Chiron and Neptune with his Mercury as well, and the way that his brain was kind of changed. But there were no interviews with him, though. That's a real shame, because I don't know what that changed in his like outlook in life, how he perceived life, or anything like that. Saturn was also square his Venus, look, by transit. So there's also that. But it's hard, though. See, when we don't know the biography of the person, it becomes a bit difficult to put into, you know, some kind of framework. I don't know. Apparently he's a very secluded person. Anyways, this is something that apparently he said to an interview to the magazine The Wire. And he said, I am being tested. The human capacity for survival is being tested. And, you know, interestingly, with that Mars, Pluto, Chiron, configuration there. I think that's definitely something that pulled him through. Mars definitely has something to do with survival, isn't it? I mean, Julian had that powerful Mars, so did Aaron as well, and now Bugorski too. So very interesting. This is me for today. So that's the references. The mini doc by Kyle Hill was the most interesting one I watched on YouTube. Obviously, Wikipedia gave me his birth, details. There's also an interesting article I read by Ella Anderson, The Man Struck by a Particle Accelerator Beam. And here we are. Thank you again. All of my blueprint, I just keep saying blueprint, like random. All of my social media stuff, have a look, send me messages, send me hello. I would love to hear from you. If you have any requests, that would be great. I will have a think about what I'm doing for next week. I'm not sure. Let's see. I want to do something inspiring. I want to choose something inspiring and interesting. So hope you all have a great evening, and see you next.